woke up this morning.
Alright guys, it's your favorite Kiwicoach. So today I wanted to kind of show you guys how to draw some of these lines and so you guys can start using this app correctly and start kind of being able to self-diagnose yourself. So I got an amateur golfer here. He's actually got a really good swing too, which I'll run it through just to kind of show you guys. So super impressed. I was sent this and I was like, well, there's not too much you can work on. I mean, there's obviously I can always nitpick, but he's got a really good swing. But anyways, so let's get into some of the things I look for at setup first. So the first thing I want you guys to go, there'll be a little pencil box. You press on that. The first thing I'm going to look at is kind of lower back spine angle. If I'm going to look at setup, that's usually the first thing I look at for down the line. So we're going to start this one pretty much from the mid part of the thigh. Draw it up to the butt and then kind of make sure that it's all matching up and lined up as best as you can. And then draw that arrow straight down. And what you're going to look for is you're trying to see if this line, if you draw it as straight as you can, if there's a little gap here, we can see that this is what we call S posture. So that could be something first you could fix, and you could get the pelvis maybe a little bit more level, or the butt sucking underneath you just a touch, and that'll kind of straighten that back line out. But again, that's how you draw the angle for the lower back angle. Now, if you wanted to draw one on the knees, all you got to do is press the angle button again. I like to start basically just the same level with the hands, or excuse me, level with the kneecaps, but kind of directionalized with the hands. And then I draw it in through that way. So you're trying to get it on pretty much just a little bit right of the middle part of that kneecap. And then draw the other one just straight up through the thigh as best as you possibly can. And then you'll get your number. So again, for this number, I'd like to see, it depends on the player and the club as well. But most players, let's just say you're around like hitting anywhere from a lob wedge to an 8-iron, super generalized, but let's say most players are going to be around like 149 to 153 would be, 152 is kind of okay, except the range. And then once you kind of get up to the longer clubs, you can see anyone from kind of 154, and I've seen 154. I've seen maybe a few tour players around like the 158 range, 160-ish. But you usually don't see them going too far below those numbers or too far above those numbers. They're usually pretty much in that range. Again, it's super generalized, but I just want to give you guys like a really basic template kind of to go off of. If you kind of follow this, you can't really go wrong type of ideas. The lower back spine angle, again, I typically see anyway, it's the same thing. For the shorter clubs, you're going to see the player bending over a little bit more, so they're going to see anywhere from that 148 to kind of 154 range. Driver's kind of the same thing, anywhere from 154 to 159-ish. I've seen a few 160 tour players, but not too many. All right, now from there, I draw a line basically from the middle of the hands straight down. And I'm trying to see kind of how far away this player is standing. So pretty much toe line to slightly inside toe line is good for your shorter irons to about mid-irons. Longer irons, woods, and drivers, you're going to see this kind of middle of the hands be a little bit more so, maybe like 2 to 3 inches outside the toes. But you're not going to see it kind of around this area. This would be maybe, you might see a few at that area. Let me do it one more time. You're not going to see anyone kind of at this area right here. So that'd be too far away. And then as well, if you get the middle of the hands right around here, or excuse me, let me do it like right around here, that'd be too close as well, and you probably can't even swing from there. So that's kind of the next thing I look for. From there, you can draw one kind of for the balls of the feet, kneecaps, and armpits. See if they're kind of all in the line, which this player's pretty much is. So that means you're balanced at setup. The next one I can draw right here is I'll use the angle, and I'll start from the horizon, draw it straight down to kind of as close as I can to the hosel of the golf club. And then I draw it through the club shaft, and then I try to make it parallel to the ground as best as you can. And that kind of shows you basically a little bit, it's kind of like line angle of the club. It's not super accurate. It could be off by like 3 degrees, 2 degrees, but it gives you a general rule of thumb. And let's say this player's hitting a 7-iron. If I saw him up in kind of the 62-degree range, I'd be asking him, did you get fitted? Did you get super upright clubs type ideas? Or you could also see that maybe his handle's super high, which they can start messing away with takeaway and all that. So the general range, again, for your shorter irons, you're probably going to see him around closer to the 58 range, 59, maybe like a lob wedge or a sand wedge in the 60-degree range. And then driver, you're going to see it down closer to like 45 range, 42 range, 47 range type ideas. So anyways, that's the lie angle at setup. Now from there, if you have a picture, luckily this guy looks like he's using a tripod because it's a very still shot. You can actually start drawing a lot of lines and kind of modeling yourself. So there's a few. You can draw one on the trunk. So on the chest like this, you can draw one on the back, draw one on the butt right here, and then draw one down the thighs, and then another one down the thigh there. Let me redo that. And again, guys, don't get caught up in trying to get these lines perfectly. You just need to have like get it somewhat good enough to where you can get a resemblance of what's going on. Now this one's a good one because on the backswing, we're trying to see a player staying kind of in his inclination, I guess you could call it, or some, you might have heard spine angle, but we're trying to see if he's kind of staying that. Is he going a little bit in the early extension? This player's doing a pretty good job of staying in that. So really just kind of seeing if he's getting that early extension move. That one's super easy to see. Now, if you don't want to draw all those lines, another easy way to see if you're going into early extension is just draw one on the butt, draw one on the top of the head, draw one on the side of the head, and that's another easy way to see if you're going to early extension. If your butt sucks in like this player did, head kind of moves back, you're going into early extension. If you're doing it to the degree that this guy is, go find yourself a tournament, right? Because he's doing a really good job of that. So that would be another some lines I draw right there. If you're trying to see, you can always draw one basically from the hosel of the club all the way through, and that would be the original shaft line. You guys have probably seen me draw that one when I video. That's basically just to see, I like to see the hands tracing on it till the end of P2, and then the club head will be slightly above it. Now if the hands start getting too far above this line and from P1 to P2, I'll say something. If they start getting too far below, I'll say something. Same thing with club head, too far above, too far below, then you're going to want to start changing ideas. This player's got a really good takeaway, so everything looks good there. Then left arm parallel, what you're looking for, you want to see club shaft bisecting that somewhere. Ideally, anywhere, you want to see this club shaft pointing anywhere at ball line to, my preference is preferably like halfway between ball line and toe line, if you're standing, the correct distance away from the golf ball. Now, top of the swing, you're pretty much going to be, depending on if you supinated or pronated a lot, your club shaft will be at certain pitches. So this guy is pretty much more of a traditionalist, right? So kind of, I guess a traditional swing would be maybe just a tiny bit bisecting the original shaft line. You'll see a lot of my players more so this way or even a little bit this way across the line because I teach a little bit more supination in the backswing. But again, nothing's wrong, right, as long as you match it up. And then the laid-off players, like the Hank Haney players, are going to be a little bit more bisecting that way. But again, it doesn't really matter, right? All that really matters is once we get down to left arm parallel, we want to make sure that this club shaft is parallel to the original shaft line, not bisecting, and then pointing outside ball target line, which this player is. Again, we don't want to get too crazy, right? We don't want it to be this way because then, again, that's not parallel to the original shaft line. We also don't want it super steep because that would be not parallel to the original shaft line as well. So again, when we're talking shallowing ideas, parallel to the original shaft line, that's what you need to check for. From there, you can also draw, you've probably seen angles in my reviews where I'll draw one. I start like basically level of the head, and I draw it down right around to at this position, kind of right butt cheek. And I try to make it go through the center of the body as best as I can, and then I try to match this up to parallel to the ground as best as I can too. This guy's at a 52-degree angle, which means he's not going into too much extension with the sternum or the upper part of the body. So that means he's doing pretty good. You can also draw it on the knees at this point. So same thing like we did at setup. So this guy's at 151, which means he's a good player, right? That means basically by left arm parallel, we want to see the knees go back to its original address position. So they're going to go from probably close to most people's right knee is at like anywhere from 168 to 175. They're going to go back to their original address position by P5, which this player does, which is really, really solid. His club shaft pitch is good. I mean, everything about this position is solid right here. I mean, I could mess around with I could talk about toe position being maybe a little bit open for my liking, but again, if he's a great, it looks like he's a great player. I don't know what he shoots, but from just watching this swing, it looks like this guy could shoot whatever score he really wants, depending on practice time and all that other stuff. P6, I mean, you could, if you're just looking at it from this kind of view and not have drawn angles or stuff to start out with, you're looking for club shaft to be kind of bisecting the right forearm for a right-handed golfer. Anywhere from here to kind of right around bisecting the middle of the bicep is okay. This would be where this arrow is a little bit more of a cut pattern, unless you early extend, but you obviously don't want to do that. So if you do the correct body motions and your club shaft is right around here-ish, that's going to be a little bit more of a cut, generally. Doesn't mean you're going to hit a cut, but that would be more of a cut motion. When it's bisecting the right forearm, that'd be a little bit more of a draw. This would be maybe a little bit start getting into some hooks, unless you match it up. I mean, this is still, even though if you're in, he's in a really good position here, I could say maybe your right elbow's a little bit far behind his body at this point. Maybe just a touch stuck out. I mean, nothing too bad. Impact, you can always check impact by, again, drawing the original shaft line like such. And what I'm looking for at impact is in their vertical swing plane, I just want to see if it's matching up to the original shaft line. So this player has a pretty good, so let's say that variance is like 6 degrees. So for me, based off just seeing that, I would say this player's handicap has to be below a 5. So that's a pretty good variance, but you're going to see the pros get closer and closer to matching up to this original shaft line. Now, not all of them match up. That doesn't mean if you match it up to there, you'll be the world-class player. You'll be a really good player, but ball striking-wise. But you see a lot of like Justin Thomas and other players even have a higher vertical swing plane than this player does, and they play really good golf. So it's all about knowing your particular ball flight and creating a swing that matches up to that intended ball flight is really the name of the game. But with the type of swing I teach, I like to see the variance very small. Because I like to see, I think it's a little bit easier way to kind of control face the path. So that's what you can look for at impact. If you want to start going into the geometry type of ideas and seeing how you could figure out the proper geometry of your swing, the original shaft line is the best way to do it. So you're going up to the top, you're trying to make sure that shoulder line is parallel to the original shaft line, which this player is. Solid, solid, solid. Basically at this position right here at impact, you're trying to see if that's covered up. Basically, you could call this in between P8 and P9. Hands haven't quite got to the shoulders yet, but you're trying to see that this shoulder axis is parallel to the original shaft line, which is good. I preferably like to see the club shaft exiting in between those two. This player's is exiting a little bit higher than shoulder line, which kind of tells me that he might be struggling a little bit with some overdraws every now and a while. But again, if he's trying to hit draws, I mean, that's not really the worst release he could have to try to hit a draw. But again, if he's starting to get some pretty big hooks, I would definitely get him exiting a little bit differently, get hand path maybe working just a tiny bit more left, and getting that club shaft in between shoulder line and the original shaft line. But again, guys, really good swing of this amateur player. Hopefully this kind of helps with how I draw some of the angles. Every one of my students that comes to me for physical location lessons or online lessons, as soon as I teach them how to draw the arrows, and they, after maybe around 5 lessons, they start understanding kind of the full ideas around what I like to see in the golf swing, they can self-correct and they can become their own golf coach like that, and they get better so quick, and then they don't even need me. And they're on and off doing kind of getting back to playing golf for score or playing golf for enjoyment, because they're hitting the ball better and not having to worry about swing. And if they ever start swinging it bad, they have a template of what their swing likes when it looks really good, and they can just try to get back to that template by drawing these angles and make, you know what I mean? So as long as you know how to look at your swing correctly, draw the angles correctly, know the correct camera angles to set up, and have a general idea of what the swing should look like, even if you aren't an expert, right? You don't have to be an expert. You just need to know general ideas, and that's where going to a PGA Pro to get those general ideas is a great way to go about it. And working on those things yourself. I mean, you guys are going to improve drastically. You got a video. I mean, There's a reason why, even to this day, even though there's all these swing catalysts, 3D motion, there's TrackMan, all that stuff, you still see coaches use video on every single lesson because it's a great visual, except for those 3D gears guys. But they probably still use 2D video as well. But anyways, you guys should all be able to use 2D. Everyone has a smartphone. Everyone can get this app. It's completely free. And if you take any, just a few tips that what I talk about, what other guys talk about, you guys are going to get so much better. Best of luck out there, guys. Hope you guys have a good weekend. And yeah.
And I said, you know, instead of waiting for a good